Hello, my name is Kyle Power, and this is my presentation for MPA 540. And in this presentation, we will talk about employee engagement and how there are differences in the varying generations of employees that are in the workforce currently, and the different drivers that motivate each employee from various generations. And in this presentation, we will compare what I identify with in my generation and what I have witnessed and experienced with the more recent generations of employees that are entering the workforce. So, being born in 1980, I identify with Generation X. And although I have probably some blended attributes in various different generations, the ones from Generation X that I could identify with are having a positive attitude in the workplace with my organization, being very goal oriented as it pertains to various assignments that I willingly take on and seek to reach those objectives, as well as being motivated by security and salary in my role and in my assignment with the Los Angeles County Fire Department. And although loyalty doesn't necessarily identify with the Generation Xers, mostly with the traditionalist generation, I see and notice that most of public safety employees have a great deal of loyalty to the organization that they work for, as they proudly represent that organization that they work for. In comparison to the generation that I identify with, I will now review some of the newer generations that are entering the workforce. So Generation Z, these are the newer employees in the workforce, as they have some differing outlooks on employee engagement and what motivates them. And what I've noticed in public safety is that most of the newer generation employees have a very good understanding of technology. They're very savvy with utilizing social media and using technology to whether it is work related or just socially to network. It is something that is very comfortable for them, as in contrast to my generation, where it would require a great deal of training and understanding to intuitively understand it, as the newer generations do. The newer generations of Generation Z seem to prioritize a very healthy social life that doesn't conflict with work. It seems as though whether it is a concert or large gathering of some sort, the newer generations definitely seem to prioritize these social aspects and traveling and doing these things as a balance in their work environment and work life, where I feel as though my generation, as Generation X, as well as previous generations, would value the workload and have a loyalty to that work ethic to complete assignments and get the job done, versus balancing it with a very healthy social life. As well as one thing that, though these are very general statements and doesn't identify everyone from this generation, but in general, over the years, it seems as though the newer generations of employees have a lower work ethic outside of the basic requirements of the job. In public safety, there's a great deal of obligation for overtime and being recalled to work and or mandated to work without signing up for overtime. And it seems as though over the last several years or couple years, the newer generations of employees are very unwilling to work overtime. And although this may not have to do with work ethic or work engagement or employee engagement or motivation, it may also have to do with the culture of the job and the fact that maybe they're just making really good money as it is, and they don't have to really rely on that overtime. But in the fire department as a whole, it seems as though the newer employees that are coming onto the job are working less. They're not looking to buy additional equipment or toys or whatever it may be, or homes. They're looking to do the bare minimum that is required to remain employed. Each organization must identify that the employees come from various generations and have differing driving forces for employee engagement and have different motivating factors in how they work. So some of the theories that identify with various generations, or maybe even more so with the newer generations, would be reciprocal relationships that Mary Parker Follett identified or theorized, where instead of having a top-down chain of command relationship from manager to subordinate that previous generations might identify with, the newer generations or Generation Z would identify with having some type of reciprocal relationship or having some power and engagement with managers and supervisors to influence the organization in some type of positive way. Hierarchy of needs that Abraham Maslow theorized would probably would identify with all different generations, as people would require to meet their basic needs prior to their self-actualization of doing what they feel they were meant to do, as well as management by objectives, which is a very simple concept where a manager would set forth a very clear expectation of what is needed to be done, how to do it, and what the rewards are when it is done, which is a very positive and very effective way, I believe, of managing an organization and their employees. In conclusion, we talked about the generation that I identify with, which is Generation X, and how it pertains to some of the driving forces or motivating forces in that generation as it pertains to my organization and public safety, as well as what I've identified in Generation Z in the new workforce that is entering public safety, as they are seemingly very technologically savvy. They have a lot to offer in those regards. However, have a lower work ethic than previous generations as it pertains to that dedication to the organization. They seem to work a very specific amount of days that they are required to do, but outside of the requirements that are the basis of the job, they are not very willing to go outside of that to have that employee engagement that was the norm for previous generations that would overly dedicate themselves to the organization. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you.